So, if you're a young guy struggling with the very real affordability crisis and you're trying to convince your dad and your uncle and your grandpa that you're not just lazy, it's just that things are incredibly difficult to afford, this is the video for you. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break down what my life experience was. I'm 54, so I'm going to be honest about what I made, what lifestyle that afforded me, and then we'll get into some suggestions and some things to kind of get you on the right track. Now, 54 years old, and I grew up. Yeah, exactly. I grew up in Miami, and when I was a younger man, 21, 22, 23, I had my own apartment on Hallandale Beach, and I made $10 an hour. And I was a pressman by trade. So I ran a printing press, I did bindery work, delivery stuff. $10 an hour was pretty much the going rate for somebody with my skill set and ability. And so I had this little apartment on Hallandale Beach. I was just past Hallandale Beach Boulevard on US 1. The apartments are actually still there. My rent was $400 a month. So the rent was four. I actually had myself a little car payment. I'm ashamed to admit it was a Hyundai, paid by week. That's a different story. But I had enough money for my rent, my car payment. Uh, Phone bill was like $13. Cable was about $30. That's pretty much it. My food and everything. And going to the grocery store back then, I didn't have a lot of money. I would go to the Winn Dixie, and if I had $15 to spend on food for the week, that was a good week. Sometimes it would be like more like 10 or $12, depending on what I had done that weekend. I did my grocery shopping on Sunday. And just to give you a short synopsis of how I was able to afford to eat on that kind of budget, macaroni and cheese was four for a dollar, five for a dollar, sometimes on special. The cans of tuna were the same price, four for a dollar, sometimes five for a dollar. So when they were five for a dollar, I'd load up. And two of my meals every day was an entire box of macaroni and cheese with an entire can of tuna, all mixed up, protein, carbs, you name it. I was good to go. I'd have enough money, a dollar here, a dollar there, to buy something off the Roach Coach that came to our warehouse area. For those of you that don't know what the Roach Coach is what we used to call the food truck. So I'd be able to go buy a Cuban meat pie and a Mountain Dew pretty much every day. You know, dollar here, dollar there, no big deal. Uh, weekends, entertainment was cheap and easy. I either went to the fishing pier. That was $3 to get in. I could, generally speaking, take $10 to the pier and get in, have my soda, have a hot dog or a burger or whatever I might need. If I needed to buy an emergency lure because I got cut off too many times, I'd have enough money to do that. Nighttime entertainment, usually go to the club. Sometimes it was free to get in. If it was like an expensive hoity-toity place, they might charge you $5. So entertainment was cheap. My rent was 400. I made my $10 an hour, and the rent was it was a nice area. Hallandale Beach is a nice area. It was by myself, a nice, good size one bedroom. Had a galley kitchen. It was a beautiful place for a guy my age. And so I was able to work my hours, right? I worked from 6 to 2. I'd get out of work at 2. I'd go to the gym. I'd come home. I'd take a nap. And I do what my hobby was at that point, which was I had a couple keyboards and I'd play music at night because, my own music, because there was no internet. There wasn't any doom scrolling or anything like that. So we had to keep ourselves busy. Now, I wasn't rich, all right? Obviously, I had just enough. And the only credit that I did have was with the car garage that was next door to our warehouse. So if something went wrong with my car, the air conditioning, whatever it is, and it was a few $100s, I just had to deal with them that, every payday they'd get 30, 40, $50, whatever I could afford. And as long as I made sure I paid things off as I agreed, they let me do that. So it wasn't any credit card, There was no interest, nothing like that. Now, what I see these days when in the online discourse is a lot of guys and girls that are in that age group of 22, 23, 24. How in the hell are you supposed to afford your own place? And I'm very sympathetic to that. And what I see a lot of people my age saying is, oh, you just need to work harder. Get a second job. Don't spend so much money. And while there is some, and I mean some truth to that, overwhelmingly, the truth is the fact that, as an example, my $10 an hour, if you Googled, hey, how much is $10 an hour in 2026 money? It's going to spit out a figure about 23.59 or something. So it's trying to infer that if you make $23 an hour now, you would have the same lifestyle as I did when I was making $10 an hour. And as we all know, that's a load of crap. The actual real number, when you take into consideration housing, the apartment that I paid $400 for right now is $19.50. The same apartment. The average rent in that area is about 22, 2300. So when you take into consideration housing and what everything is actually, the cost of everything has gone up, somebody at my age or at that age would need to make $46 to $50 an hour to be able to have the same lifestyle. Now, the job I did right now, the average salary for the job that I had back then, ironically, is the $23 an hour that Google will tell you is equal to the 10, but it's not in the real world. So for starters, if anyone tells you, well, just work harder, it's like, no, that's not necessarily the same problem. Now, there are a lot of distractions if you're a young man this in this day and age. Like I said, I didn't have internet. There was no cell phones. I had my house phone. It was like $13 a month. That was it. You had a house phone and had an answering machine. So one of the things that I think has also happened is not just the lack of production for guys that are in that age group. It's it's not just the distractions. It's not just the distractions of doom scrolling and video games and being able to play video games online and interact. It's not just that, but it's about motivation. At least that's part of the reason that I think guys are struggling now. I'm going to call you kids. I'm 54. It's no disrespect, but it's my natural vernacular to just say kids. I think a big part of the reason why kids are struggling right now, especially the men, is a lack of motivation. Listen to the things I just was able to do over the course of a weekend. I could leave work on a Friday and go fishing and go to the club, which was about 45 minutes away. And I could do all my fishing, everything I wanted to do with the club, and my gas, and maybe spend $20. Maybe it would be 2 hours worth of work at the $10 an hour. You follow what I'm saying? You're not going to go to the movies now and the club and put gas in your car and everything now for what would be the equivalent of 2 hours of work if you're making $23 an hour. And that's if you can make the $23 an hour. And that doesn't even include your housing. So it was easy in my day to say, hey, I'm going to work hard, but here's my rewards, right? I'm going to get my weekends off. I don't have to worry about having a second job. I can go and do all the things that I like to do. I had multiple hobbies. I went to there was a par three golf course that wasn't too far, Hollywood Hills, I believe. Could go there. I think it was $5. It wasn't expensive. You could get a couple of secondhand golf clubs and you just go out there. In fact, I think they actually had clubs that you could use. So there was there wasn't any stress from doom scrolling and having to text back and forth with anybody. And it was a good reward system. I worked, I had my own place. I didn't have to worry about roommates. I could come and go as I pleased. If I put something in the refrigerator, it was there at the end of the weekend, right? I could grocery shop on Thursday night and do whatever I was going to do on the weekend. And Sunday morning, I knew my food was there. My roommates hadn't touched it. And when you add up all of the incidental stresses that kids these days are going through, it's no wonder that when you say, well, go get a second job, go work harder, their answer might be, yeah, but why? What for? I'm still going to need a roommate, right? I'm still not going to be able to afford to go do the things that I want to do. God forbid you actually have a girlfriend that you need to take out and go to dinner and go to the movies. The expenditure of outcome that is expected now versus when I was that age, it's a huge part of the reason why guys are just giving up in that regard. And so I wanted to make this video, and we're not done, but I wanted to make this video so that if you're one of these kids that's struggling to try to find your own way and to have your own house and everything, and dad's giving you grief and grandpa's telling you, well, you just got to work harder, blah, 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 you have my permission to tell them to blow it out their ass, because that's where they're speaking from. Because the reality is, as anybody my age knows, we know we had it infinitely better than the kids our age, that, the kids that are now in their 23, 24, 25-year-old range. Now, a couple of the things that have also happened. I was a printer, right? I was a printer by trade. But how did I learn that trade? Well, my father was a printer. He was able to pass that down to me. Now, in many ways, that dynamic has not been able to occur quite as often. Um, Guys are having, the older generation is having to work a lot more to afford the family. Maybe they don't have the time to teach their generation, their kids. Maybe they don't have the time. And also a lot of the jobs are obsolete. There's parts of the job that I did. One of the parts was the cameraman with if you ever seen them with the typesetting and the light table, and I'd have to have my loop out and making getting everything ready for the printing press. Well, for the most part, those jobs don't exist anymore because it's all computers. So that's a skill that my dad learned, that he taught me, that's obsolete now, and those jobs no longer apply. And anybody can do the same thing on Canva now. Most of that work can be done, for the most part, can be done on programs by anybody with a laptop. So there's a lot of different ways that, the opportunities have shrunk. Now, there's different opportunities now, right? Obviously, there wasn't content creation and things like that. But don't get caught up too much in that. It's one thing, you want to make a couple videos, you want to give it a go, that's one thing. But it's not for the meek. Making money online is not always what it is presented out to be. One piece of advice I can give you is don't buy the courses. Okay. If I had created a structure of how to make a multi-million dollar drop shipping business, why would I tell you about it? You know what I mean? For $5,000, I'll tell you about it, but why would I give away that information? So don't delude yourself into some of these. You see a lot of advertisements because that's what people need now, right? Kids are needing these second and third jobs. You need your side hustles. And most part, the only ones making money on those are the guys that are selling you the course that, hopes and dreams, right? So I want to get into a few of the things that you can do, a few of the pitfalls to avoid. I can't guarantee you success, but I can give you some ideas. Now, first thing I can tell you is, guys, do not get into a relationship or stay in a bad relationship for financial purposes. The astronomical cost detrimental to the energy cost, the cost that it's going to take you to keep that relationship going, specifically because, well, I don't want to break up with her because, we're splitting the bills. We're splitting the bills. Don't start a relationship or stay in a bad relationship just because of that. I know it might suck to try to find another roommate and everything like that, but you won't have soul sucked from your body at the same time. Now, in terms of uh, roommates, if you're gonna have to have a roommate, and for the most part, a lot of you will, because $2,000 rent, how are you paying that, making 15, $20 an hour? Even with two jobs, that's going to be difficult. Treat roommates like you're entering a relationship. Okay. Vet them, even hang out with them. Try to make it somebody that you might know is going to be somebody you've known, somebody you can tolerate, maybe somebody you've gone on a trip with before, a friend from high school, a friend from college that's responsible, and that when you go grocery shopping on Thursday and you go out on the weekend and have your fun, on Sunday you're going to wake up and your coffee's still there and your creamer's still there. You follow what I'm saying? The roommate situation, if you get a bad roommate, it's not going to be much different than having a bad relationship. So it's very important to vet any roommates and to try to, at the very least, before you even get the apartment, get the place, to maybe hook up with a couple of friends and be like, hey, do you want to do this as a group? Make sure they're the responsible kind. Okay. If you even have to start the conversation with, well, I'd appreciate it if you cut down the partying. I'd appreciate it if you didn't play music so loud at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. If you even have to start with that, it's bad news. It's bad news. And I understand how frustrating that is. I really, really do. I never had to have a roommate. I had a roommate for a little bit when I was in the Air Force, but in terms of living by myself, I had my own place, my own space, and there's nothing quite like it. Now, a couple other things I have here. Some of this is pretty obvious. Now, I had to go to the grocery store. I bought my mac and cheese. I bought my tuna. I get my little treats here, box of cereal, something like that. Honey Nut Cheerios with sugar and chocolate chips was my dessert. But what we didn't have was DoorDash. I actually went to just the grocery store by myself. Imagine that. And they didn't have Klarna in a firm to where, you know what, I can't really afford this pizza right now, this pizza delivery, but I'll just make payments on it. Stop. Full stop. Because the little bit a month and a little bit a month and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, it adds up. And yeah, I can afford it. Yeah, you can afford the $8 a month, the $13 a month, or whatever it is. Of course, you're going to be able to come up with that, but it's going to eat away and eat away. And it just over time, you end up paying $75 for a $30 pizza that when I was your age only cost me like $5. And that's another part to the entertainment, and in terms of dating and the risk, the rewards of working so hard. When I was 23, I met my ex-wife and we would go out to this little Mexican restaurant for the lunch, and we would get our lunch, we would get the chips and salsa, and we would have leftovers to bring home with the tip, 15 bucks, everything with the tip. And we tip good. Now, one plate might cost you 15 and it's not even enough for leftovers. So that's another space where the rewards of working hard, the rewards of hard work have been, you know, not taken away, but have been lessened significantly for people that are in their younger days right now. Now, another good thing is to take advantage of who you know. Don't take advantage of them, but take advantage. An example would be one summer, my brother from another mother, his dad knew a guy, and the guy worked for a big construction place. And they did all these massive driveways. They were blacktopping huge shopping centers, things like that. And they would always, they would contract for a certain amount of blacktop. And at the end of the job, there'd be 3, 5, maybe even 10 of the 5-gallon buckets of blacktop that weren't used. And for whatever the regulations were, if it had come out to the job site, they weren't able to like reuse it on another job site. Everything had been paid for. And so my brother's dad I know he's not my real brother, my brother from another mother. His dad hooked brother Gene up with the friend. And so we spent an entire summer. We would get the buckets of blacktop for like $5 from this guy. And we just went around the neighborhood with some paint rollers and buckets of blacktop and, 50 bucks, $100, whatever it was, to blacktop people's driveway. And we spent the whole summer doing that. And it was just side job, but it was taking advantage of somebody that we knew. One of the ways, and this dives into something I'm going to talk about with, you know, having a hobby that it is not just rewarding for you, but maybe isn't super expensive. You look on YouTube and you see the cost of the fishing reels, and it's like, my God, just go to the Goodwill, go to yard sales. Now, that's one thing that I did when I was younger, and I still do somewhat, but I sold on eBay as early as 1999. Going to yard sales, auctions, thrift stores, not only you can buy stuff for resale, but especially going to liquidation auctions, you end up buying stuff and it's for your house, right? We tiled our house one time with tile that we got from an auction for $5. We tiled the entire house. So you can find things like that, not just for resale, but things that'll help you save money so you don't have to buy them full price. Another thing that I used to do was I would supplement my income by there was a bar that was not too far from me, and I had some friends that frequented that bar. And on the weekends, they had a they had a karaoke contest. And so I would go, and my friends would clap for me. It was voted upon by popular demand, and I'd win most weekends, and it was a $50 gift card to the restaurant. And so, to the bar, they had bar food or whatever. And so I'd cash it in, and I'd leave the place with, fries and all sort, fajitas and all sorts of things that they had. And I would supplement my grocery bill with a hobby that I had, and it wasn't costing me anything. It was free to get in. I would get my one soda, spend my dollar on my soda, tip the girl a couple of bucks, sing my song, we'd win, and then that would be that. So you have to find obviously what you're good at, but find the people that you know. Who does your dad know? Who's your brother know? Who does the people at your original job know? Now, one thing that I was able to take advantage of from time to time that you can't do anymore is I was able to say, hey, if I work an extra 5 hours, 8 hours here or there, can I do it? I don't want overtime, right? Now, legally, the people can't do it, but I wouldn't have got that extra money if I knew I had something coming up where I wanted an extra $50 or an extra $100. Like, hey, can I work an extra 10 hours this week and no overtime? And they were like, sure, no problem, no problem at all. Now, technically, legally, you can't do that right now. I suppose if you had a handshake agreement with whoever you're working with, I'm sure you could do it, but it's got to be somebody where you both feel comfortable. There's a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different ways to cut down on costs. Now, of course, some of you are saying, yeah, that's nice, right? An extra buck here, a buck there, but rent's $2,000. What the hell are you supposed to do about that? Because if you got two people, a roommate situation, a relationship situation, and even if you're both making $20 an hour, half that rent's going to be $1,000, is still going to be cutting it close because my electric bill was like $70 in the summer. In the winter, it would be like 35, $40. Now that same electric bill is going to be at least $300. You got your cell phone, right? Unless you want the cheapest type of cell phone, which I still do have. I still have my original Verizon prepaid plan that I bought years and years and years ago. I paid $30 a month for my phone. I don't have unlimited data, but I don't need it. Everything, everywhere I go, I connect to the Wi-Fi. It's no skin off my back. So there are ways to save the 5, 10, $20 here or there. But the biggest thing is, don't let my generation get you down. Don't let them gaslight into telling you or getting you to believe that the only reason you're financially struggling is because you're not willing to work hard enough, you don't have enough jobs, or you're not cutting back enough. Now, if you're doing stupid things like ordering pizza with Klarna, okay, they might have a point. But if you're working a 40-hour job and another 15-hour job, and you're making your 20, even 25 bucks an hour, and you can't quite find the right place to live, and you have to have a roommate, and then that situation gets a little wonky, or you're still in a bad relationship with your girlfriend because you're splitting the bills and all of that. If you're in that position and dad or grandpa are giving you grief like there's something wrong with you, no, they're full of it. And they know that. My generation knows that how we grew up was astronomically better than how the kids are growing up right now. We didn't, hell, just the stress of dating that you kids have to go through, just the stress of dating. Because guess what? When I was in high school, if I had a girlfriend in the high school, you know who my competition was? The guys at the high school. For you guys, you're competing with every guy in the world. You're competing with every guy in the world. And especially as you get to 22, 23, 24, every guy that she's ever known at any given point in time can just show up in her DMs and make her give you a second thought. You see what I'm saying? So just that stress and pressure alone, we didn't have to deal with that garbage. We knew, you know what I mean? Like if there was another guy at my school that liked my girlfriend, a couple of the guys that were my friends were like, "Hey, you know, Steve, he likes your girl. Keep an eye out." Cool, no problem. I can do that. So there's a million different ways that you guys are significantly more stressed than our generation. I used to spend the summers. If you guys live down there in South Florida, it's called the C9 Canal, and it's just east of 441. And my brother and I would ride our bikes. It was several miles. We'd ride our bikes, place our bikes underneath the bridge, and spend all day fishing. Nobody bothered us. We weren't making any content for YouTube. The game warden didn't come up. There was no HOA that came and bothered us. There were no homeless people that were bothering. Just the ability to just go up there on a random Wednesday in the summer and spend the whole day fishing, walking up and down the canal, not be bothered, listening to our music. You guys don't get that for the most part. Some you can, some areas, yes. But like a lot of the areas that I grew up fishing, they're housing communities now, or especially if they're like little, you know, canals and little lakes off in the middle of nowhere that you could go and fish or do something with, go camping out there. Now you can't do anything. Maybe it's a HOA, maybe the game warden's out there making sure you're not camping and starting fires, which I get, but there's a certain amount of freedom that came with that lifestyle. So that was the biggest reason I wanted to make this video. Yeah, we've got some suggestions, and you do want to watch your spending and everything else. But for somebody like me who made 10 bucks an hour back in 1991, and I was able to have my own apartment and a car payment and pay my bills and have all the entertainment that I needed and have my hobbies, for me to look at somebody now who's 25 and say, "Hey, how come you can't make it?" That's just intellectually dishonest. So don't let anybody give you any crap. And if they do, send them here to watch this video and I'll set them straight for you.